share and engage. I mean, there's nothing better in building a relationship than sharing and engaging with a prospect or a client's content, or sharing content that you think is going to be value to them, tagging them in. An amazing feeling. I think people don't fully appreciate the power that social media has on a relationship building level.
Hey y'all, welcome to Selling with Social, the podcast that helps marketers increase marketing qualified leads, sales reps to shatter sales results, and sales leaders to grow as leaders. Each show, we interview sales, marketing, and social media practitioners, leaders, and influencers to help you connect, close more deals, build stronger relationships with clients, and improve your sales productivity. I'm Mario Martinez Jr. You're now listening to Selling with Social. Daniel Disney, I am so excited to be talking to the man behind the daily sales. The stuff that I see from you on those memes, the quotes are just amazing and, quite frankly, hilariously funny. And I am glad that I actually get to spend some time talking to you on Selling with Social. So thanks so much for joining me, my friend.
Oh, you are more than welcome. It's a genuine honor to be on this show. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about you. Number one, you're a speaker. Number two, you are the owner of The Daily Sales, which has over, I think, 106,000 followers on LinkedIn, which is amazing. And also, you are a blogger. And in addition to that, you actually have a full-time job as well, that's selling training solutions. So tell me, I probably described you, but tell our listeners a little bit about you. Remember, we have solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, sales folks, sales leaders, marketers. Tell everybody a little bit about you. Who is the real Daniel Disney?
Cool. So, I'm a salesman at heart, from my very first job, straight into a sales job. Been selling for nearly 15 years now, selling for about probably 10 of those, and then sort of leading sales teams for the most recent 5. And for me, genuinely love sales. I love the industry. I love the role. I love the people. And I think around about 3 years ago, I sort of got sucked into the world of social media. And, one thing that I often chuckle about is that before then, I wasn't really a social media person. I'm not someone who genuinely felt the need to be on social media a lot, but LinkedIn drew me in. It brought professionalism and sales kind of into social media. And from that, over the last few years, through blogging, through the daily sales, it's helped me in my career. It's helped me, out of my career. And here we are.
Fantastic. So many know of you because you actually publish regularly, not only on terms of content, but also the Daily Sales channel, which we'll put in the show notes as well, right? So anybody who's not a follower of the Daily Sales, you got to be a follower. Like, this is some of the stuff you see is just like hilarious. But I want to go backwards in time, because those that are listening, sales folks, want to get some great insight out of this. But I want to go backwards in time on, you were in sales or sales leadership when you started the Daily Sales program.
Yeah, so I started it when I was in a sales manager's role, but I was actively selling at the same time. It was a tech startup, so it was all hands on deck. There was no one that escaped the need of the pipeline. So I was selling at the time, social selling at the time. We'd really just started to utilize it a lot, and social selling on a separate scale is an amazing thing at the moment. But what I saw was a lot of content out there, a lot of sales content. My sales content was doing well, and what I wanted to create was a way to bring it all together into one central location. I'm sure self and most of the listeners will agree, their social feeds are absolutely full of a mixture of content that we're almost drowning in content, and to try and have places where you can kind of whittle down to hopefully, some good stuff.
Yeah. So you were in sales leadership and you decided to start writing. What was the purpose of starting content creation?
So it was after I was reading a lot of sales blogs, reading blogs from Tony J. Hughes, Anthony Iannarino, some really great stuff. And I thought, I'd really like to give this a try. To be fair, I'd never written before. I thought I'll give this a go, and wrote my first blog, which was, I think it was the top 5 sales quotes that I like, something simple like that. And 100 people read it. And for someone that's never written anything, never done really much social stuff, to have 100 people read something you've written was an amazing feeling. And it was a bug, and been writing ever since.
So it's kind of like that. You got that salesman passion inside you when you saw 100 people. Now the next question was, can I get a 200? Can I get 300? Can I get 500? Right?
Exactly. A dangerous trap. But like with anything, you evolve, you get better at it, you find ways to get better results from it. And yeah, so from 100 people reading my first one to, nearly 300,000 reading some of my recent ones, it's, if you keep at it. And I think, again, if we talking about the sort of audience and then the takeaways from it, it's an ability to communicate with a very wide network, as opposed to here's a phone book, make some calls. Well, actually, here I can write a blog. There's 300,000 people that are aware of what I do and what I'm essentially selling.
Yeah, for sure. So you started as content writing as a salesperson because you wanted to just start developing your own personal brand from a thought leadership perspective. But talk to us a little bit about the benefits that you've received as a sales leader and as a salesperson for actually doing content creation. Because I will tell you that, oftentimes leaders ask me, hey, Mario, are you expecting our salespeople to start going out there and creating their own content and come, and I like to say this, the thought leader. So, and they ask me, we don't want our guys to become thought leaders. And my response is, look, we don't want salespeople to become thought leaders unless it happens organically on its own. That's not the purpose of actually creating content. And if worst case scenario, all you do is curate other people's content to be able to attract your targeted audience and provide them something of value, right, that they can utilize and then you can engage with them on. So I've got some philosophies behind this, and I would love to hear your perspective on, the benefits that you've received in becoming a content creator and what that's done for your personal business.
Yeah, of course. So I've got two stories. One, success from content creation as a salesperson, and one success that came from being a sales leader. So stripping it right back, one of the first blogs I'd written, I think it was maybe blog number 4, I put it out there, and there was a target company that I was trying to approach. Couldn't get through the gatekeeper, tried all various sales tactics, could not get in front of this company. And by chance, I wrote this blog. It was a sales blog. It wasn't relevant to the product I was selling. It wasn't pushing the company or anything like that. It was just my personal sales blog. By chance, someone from within that company, a salesperson was within that company, liked the blog. And I obviously saw that, tells you this on LinkedIn. So I reached out and I said, thanks for liking the blog. What did you like in particular about it? Next thing you know, conversation starts. I get an introduction to the decision maker, meeting booked. Long story short, I get a sale with that target company. And that was all from writing a little bit of content. And, one thing to really highlight is a lot of content out there that businesses and salespeople are doing is, here's my product, here's my company, here's why we're amazing, here's why you should buy from us. And that almost has an unattractive effect of it. Whereas actually, if you just write insight, something genuine, something not trying to sell anything, you get better engagement from that. And this blog had nothing to do with what I was selling. It was in no way trying to force anything, but it got that result. So for me, writing a bit of content got me a very good customer. And, there are many ways I've utilized social to build pipeline and win deals. So content creation plays a big part in that. And then just sort of off of that, as a sales leader, I found personally it was really beneficial through, especially writing as a salesperson and a sales leader, but using that content to help my team. So, when closing's an issue, then I'll write a blog about it. I'll share that blog with my team. It's a much easier way to digest instead of me pulling them into a classroom for half a day or a day, get them to read the blog and then work through them with it. So it's just a bit of a creative way, especially a lot of people nowadays, they prefer to read blogs than a book, than sit and do a training course. So that's worked very effectively as a sales leader. And the same, I work in a company now. I lead 35 salespeople, and big influence of me, but I love seeing it. The amount of memes that go around on the internal emails now is amazing. That I'll send, plenty of emails trying to motivate, and I'll put my own memes in, but they do it themselves. And the atmosphere, the culture it creates is amazing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to come back to that one, what I can see about culture change that you've created here. But love the example you gave as a salesperson. I think those are valid points, right? In terms of creating content or engaging with content, you actually were mining the likes and comments to determine whether or not there was anybody that you could probably connect to. And then you did exactly what people sometimes, we talk about this in digital sales training. And oftentimes reps say, well, what should I say? Well, what should I do? And I always say, well, if you were standing in front of the person, what would you say? And they know what exactly to say. And then I say, well, great. Go say that, right? Go say that on social. Go say that on your digital platform. So you obviously mined that. You found an opportunity. You created conversation. You humanized the engagement. And what I love about what you said, which is so important, is that you not only just said, hey, thanks so much to the person for engaging, but you asked them, I think you said, what did you like the most? Or what did you like about the article, right?
Yep. And
you wanted to create the number one thing that we try to teach reps how to do is create conversations, right? And then once you've created that conversation, move every online conversation to offline, right? Every online to offline, meaning you're actually picking up the phone. You're actually engaging with through virtual video collaboration software, like from Zoom as an example. So I think that's really important. Now, what caught my interest though, and I actually never thought about this, and maybe you and I can co-develop a blog post on this one. We'll see what you think about this. But I love the idea that you just talked about, that when you're trying to coach and teach your sales reps, many of sales leaders, and I've been in 20 years in sales. My last stop was the VP of sales. I never thought about writing down and creating a blog, a masterpiece that kind of takes them through a methodical thought process. It was, we're having conversations, ready, break, and they go. Right. And every once in a while, depending on whether or not you've got to have a rep, you got to start documenting things for a rep. You say documenting quotes, right?
Yeah.
Things for reps. That's when you would turn around and you would, document the conversation about the what, the how, the when, the where inside of an email example. But tease this out for me a little bit more. You are using blogging as a way to coach and train your salespeople. Talk about that.
So there was no real light bulb moment as to when I started using blogs to help with sales coaching and sales training. But if I remember rightly, the very first time I ever did it was when it was the last week of the month. I had a sales team, big pipeline, and they were really struggling to close those deals. And I thought, okay, here's a good idea. I've been writing blogs about sales. Why don't I write a blog about closing deals? Did the research, put something together, a good list of closing tips, put in a real nice punchy way. My style of writing is pretty conversational. It's about presenting it in a nice, easy to digest, fun, sort of interactive way. Printed it off, gave it to everyone the next day. They all read it. We ran through it and, amazing results from it. And I've used it ever since. If there's a problem with prospecting, I'll write a blog about it. If there's something, train social selling, I'll write a blog about it, give it to the team, share it, through email, whatever it may be, and then work through them with it on a one-to-one basis. But it's proven to be a really effective way for them to sort of initially digest that information. It's better than reading a book, which might take them days or weeks. It's better than just standing in front of them and telling them where they're only going to absorb so much of that information. It almost plants some seeds that you can then grow.
So I totally understand the concept about reading books. And I've got a stack of, I don't know how many books I've got here, but the most recent one here is by Anthony Iannarino, The Lost Art of Closing.
That's the new one. That looks good.
It hasn't even come out yet. And I've got my copy of it, baby. I got my copy of it. So I'll put a plug in for Anthony there. But what was interesting, though, is I get it, right? As a digital sales influencer, I've got so many books that I want to get to. And you're right. As I look at this, I'm going to get to this book, but it's so much and it's hard for me to be able to digest it. But as a sales rep, it's easier to digest content in small quantities, in small snippets. And what's interesting, though, is we know as sales leaders, we know that if we were to coach, provide documented reinforcement, and coach again and practice, those are the things that are going to stick. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to go on at a whim here and say, majority of sales leaders probably have never really written about these types of topics: prospecting, how to close, what happens when you're at the last 5 days of the month on the end of a quarter and you're, especially in software, how do you deal with that, right? How do you move the customer off and provide that training over the course of time? Like that's a fantastic idea, man. Like that's really great. And what it's produced now for you is, tell us a little bit about the thought leadership benefits that have happened as a result of really trying to help your sales team and what has actually happened for you in terms of viewership, readership, and now actually some of your speaking that you're doing.
Yeah. So, again, 3 years ago, you wouldn't know who I was. I was just a sales manager running a sales team, selling and blogging consistently for sort of 2.5, 3 years now. People, I have a large audience, a large personal audience, about 25,000 people. I blog every week. Again, my first blog had 100 people read it. One of my more recent ones, over nearly 400,000 people reading it. And I get opportunities now to have wonderful conversations with yourself, Mario. I get to go and speak at some amazing sales events, and it's opened up a million of doors that 3 years ago I certainly wouldn't have had. And obviously along that journey, it's helped me transform the way I lead salespeople, the way I coach salespeople. And here's an interesting one. So talk about the daily sales. I put a question out a couple of weeks ago. What do you read more of, sales books or sales blogs? Now, wasn't some sort of big sliding scale, but it was about 60% in favor of sales blogs against sales books. And, let's be fair, sales blogs, probably peaking in popularity over the last few years. But I thought that was fascinating to see that the majority starting to slip now into preferring to consume blogs than books. And I love books as well. I've got stacks and stacks of books, so I can't beat a good old paper book. But I probably do consume more sales blogs overall than I do books on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, well, somebody recently asked me, maybe it was a few months ago, and they said, how many books have you read this past year? I said, very few. And they said, well, how many did you read last year? And I was like, very few. And they're like, you're not growing and developing. And I said, oh, no, wait a minute. Hold on. You are quite wrong there, because the medium by which we can engage with folks now is blogging, now through podcasts,
yeah, videos.
Right? Yeah. So there are different ways, and I'm going to go with where I'm most comfortable with, which is I hate writing, but I love to talk. So let's talk about it, right? So I think that's important to understand is that, there are all these different ways to consume, and you bring up a really great point as sales leaders. Sometimes sales leaders, we go out and we hire the organization that, they got the new book, they have a whole training program around it, which is not bad. By the way, there's plenty of them that are phenomenal that are out there.
100%.
But what could we do as leaders that will help impact our salespeople and actually make it turn into muscle memory? And you've given a great suggestion, which is leverage blogs. In my past roles, I used video. So I would create video messages and I would send that out to the sales team and either like show them as an example, like why I helped with reorganizing a proposal in such a way, how to go about overcoming objections, or what my process was like from a planning my day perspective. And interestingly enough, even in my own digital sales training programs, I always have at least a 20-minute soliloquy that I do in front of the actual classroom, because I want them to see, when I have a prospect, what am I doing to try to get into that prospect's door or to move the sale forward? And I think it's very important that sales leaders who are listening and marketing leaders who are listening, like, what could you do different that's going to make something stick? And that's a really phenomenal idea that you came up with.
It's leading by example. That's the point you're making. Whether it's a blog, whether it's a video, it's you getting away from the desk that probably most people think you're sat behind, and you're getting in front of them, whether it's written, whether it's through audio, whether it's through video, and you're showing them how to do it. You're not telling them how to do it, showing them how to do it. And I think you're right. It's utilizing the tools now, especially that people are getting more comfortable engaging through, provide a much more effective way of getting that message across. So I love the video idea. I think that's brilliant. That's not one I've tried yet, so I'm going to take that one.
Well, if you want a great internal enterprise messaging platform, I could introduce you to my friends at OneMob. And they're actually, I saw something really killer and really amazing. I'm on the advisory board for OneMob, and it's all about creating messaging for internal communications. And I love it. It's really some great stuff they're focusing in on. And, the application of sending a video no longer is just send a video to get to a prospect. It's let me send a video for internal communications, right? I want you to understand how to consume this information, but you're going to see me talk. You're going to feel me talk. You're going to feel my passion. Mm-hmm. Whereas in writing, you don't necessarily always see that. Now, but I do appreciate your writing because it is very much conversational. So sometimes I feel like I'm in the room with you, or I'm inside your head when I read your material. But
nothing weird about that there, but
So interestingly enough, out of all of your 35 reps that you have today in your organization, how many of them are writing today and creating content in your organization?
Only a very small handful, to be fair. And, it's something I'm trying to encourage. It's not comfortable for everybody. I'm sure you find this, it's not for everyone. Not every sales rep's going to feel comfortable writing a blog. Not every sales rep's going to feel comfortable creating content. And, it's been talked about to death, but obviously sales and marketing aligning, it's still very much relevant. I think it's about marketing, creating sales relevant content, because like I said, it's not for everyone. You will get salespeople like myself who's just quite comfortable writing blogs and creating content, but I've met plenty of great salespeople that that don't need to create content to win at sales, which is fine, but it certainly helps, keep them relevant, etc. So it's not for everyone, but Christ, I am an advocate to make sure everyone at least tries it. I think until you try it, you got to give it a go.
Yeah, absolutely. So messaging here is sales reps do not have to be content creators, but they should be curating other people's content to engage with their buyers. Agree or disagree?
No, 100%. I think, you're creating, you're curating, or you're doing both. And, you're right. If you're not comfortable to create it, then share and engage. I mean, there's nothing better in building a relationship than sharing and engaging with a prospect or a client's content, or sharing content that you think is going to be value to them, tagging them in. An amazing feeling. I think people don't fully appreciate the power that social media has on a relationship building level. A lot of people are so busy doing it either personally or they're just not on social media. But that feeling that you get when someone tags you in something, it's an amazing feeling. And if that's,
you feel important.
You do, yeah. And if that's your prospect and they're like, oh wow, this guy's great. He's tagged me in this entertaining bit of content. It's informative. That's building the layers of a relationship, and the opportunities are endless.
Yeah, well, I will tell you that when you wrote the article on social selling, and I forgive me, I'm trying to remember the name of that article. It was...
I've written a few, otherwise I'd love to jump in and know which one it was.
It was the one where you tagged me on, which I certainly appreciate. I can't remember. You tagged me inside one of your articles, and then all of a sudden, it was, you quoted me or you tagged me and had said, go ahead and, watch and follow someone like Mario. But what was interesting about that is that you didn't tell me that you tagged me. I didn't even know until one morning that somebody actually reposted that article and tagged me in it. And then I was like, what the heck? There's already 500 likes on this article. So first off, thanks for doing that. But I think it's important that when people see that, like, you get the warm and fuzzy inside. And one of the things I think is also interesting, and I want to switch gears here to talk about the daily sales, these memes that you've got going on social, some of them are serious in nature and some of them are just, hilarious in nature. And they have great messaging inside there. But I believe that some of these items, sales people who are selling to sales and marketers, and then it doesn't necessarily apply if you're selling to the IT segment, or maybe it does, but you should take some of these memes and you should forward and tag it to some of your prospects and say, John, I thought of you. I mean, it's a great way to be able to develop a human-to-human connection, especially if it's like the IT guy who's like, you're not going to stop calling me until I actually return your phone call. And then all of a sudden you see a meme from the Daily Sales that says something very similar. And then you tag John and say, John, I thought of you when right? That would totally lighten the mood. And those are things that are unique. And I think that people need to think about, like, how can I develop a more humanized connection, a human-to-human connection through content, through social, through digital engagement. And this is some of the things that we advocate. So let me ask you a question going to the daily sales. What made you come up with this idea to start putting out all these crazy memes down there with great quotes, by the way, and some great pictures? Well, I mean, where did that come from?
It's a funny story. I mean, again, after blogging for perhaps 6 months, and I was getting good readership, maybe up to 1,000 likes on my blogs by this point, really enjoying it. And then I started seeing them on Facebook. You see a few on LinkedIn, but I didn't see a lot of sales memes. And I thought, okay, wouldn't it be funny? I'm sure there's plenty that I could create. So I took a scene from Dumb and Dumber. I don't know if you remember it. It's
I love Dumb and Dumber.
Great film. There's the scene where Lloyd's with Mary, and Mary says, even if you were the last man on earth, it would never stand a chance. And Lloyd grins, in this face of rejection and says, so you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah,
In my head, I instantly thought of the countless times salespeople are phoning prospects and the prospect turns around and says, give me a call in a year's time, give me a call in 6 months. And I can imagine the amount of salespeople that are sat there thinking, so they're telling me there's a chance. Put it in a meme. And I tell you what, from a blog that would get maybe 100 likes to 1,000 likes, that single meme in less than 24 hours did nearly 1,500 likes. And to me, I could spend hours creating a blog, but 10 minutes creating this meme and it got an insane amount more engagement. So, long story short, kept creating the memes, putting them around. And then I started to sort of piece together thinking, okay, is there a way I can bring all this content together, provide a platform that salespeople can go to every single day and have a bit of entertainment, some humor, a bit of, motivation through a quote, and then some inspiration through a blog. And sat on the sofa one day, the daily sales popped into my head, and here we are nearly 2 years later, 120,000 followers, content reaching, 7 million every month. And salespeople love it. I enjoy it because it's my passion. And yeah, just love doing it.
Do you ever get those people that say, this is not the type of stuff that belongs on LinkedIn?
All the time. Someone actually tweeted one of my daily sales shares and said, I wish I didn't see so much of this on LinkedIn. And normally I don't respond to these things, but I couldn't resist replying and just said, well, but so many people love it.
Yeah. I put out a post. I'll drop a link into the show notes, but it was a message that I put out there a couple of weeks ago. My wife chin checked me. Right. Then lovingly pointed out that I was not putting our family first and I needed to engage with my children. So I actually put a picture of me actually staining my deck. And
I remember seeing that.
I think it's up to like 1,700, likes right now, and over 250,000 people that have actually seen this thing and have engaged with it and impressions and all that stuff. But the messaging was so much about, we focus so much on our business and our careers, but we have to remember that we cannot forget about our family. But do you know how many people were actually like, this doesn't belong on LinkedIn, but this is inappropriate. Belongs on Facebook. And I would just tell them, shut up.
It's the LinkedIn police. I tell you what, everyone likes to have an opinion. I personally really don't have a lot of time for negativity on social media. I don't like that negative voice. You don't like it, then, don't follow me, don't connect with me. That's fine. Too many people enjoy it, and for me it's entertainment and it's fun. I get it, but I don't think there's a place for it really.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, the rules of social media are you put whatever darn well you want on there. And I remember there was a story of a friend who had went through a very troublesome time, and she wrote a blog article about her challenges and her nervous breakdown. And I remember another social influencer, we were out, and she goes, that type of stuff does not belong on LinkedIn. That's just so inappropriate. And I said, why? It helps to establish a human-to-human connection. What is wrong with you? Like, why would you think that way? So the reality is, if you believe, here's my rule. First off, if you're posting pictures of you and your kids and, you at the, wherever, the beer pub or those types of things, yeah, those are some things that probably don't belong in a business setting. But if you can turn it into a business application, right, and a business meaning, like, for example, when I was on my deck, staining my deck, and my wife was taking a picture of me and I was working with my boys and teaching them how to actually do this, and talking about the importance of making sure that you put family first. My wife said, she reminded me, she said, it is me first, your children second, and the business and helping everybody else third. And you need to remember that. And she was so right. And by the way, some people even said, why would it be that your wife comes first and not your children? Well, hello, children grow up and they leave the house and it's just you and your wife, bonehead. That's what I wanted to say. So, but the reality is like, I turned it into a business application, and that was very true. Like, even as a CEO of Vengreso, we're the largest full-service digital sales spectrum service provider globally, you still have to remember that it's the family that really makes you up. And that would really help to establish a lot of humanized connection experiences that I've had over the last few weeks since that post went out.
But look, I mean, the message there is that actually by having that human message, that human bit of content, it created amazing engagement because people buy from people, and they saw you as a person, not someone who's trying to sell something, not someone who's trying to push content down anywhere. It's just, look, this is my family. This is me. This is who I am. It builds trust.
Yeah. Well, the other one was people said, well, if you were humbled, you probably wouldn't have put this picture on there. And I was just like,
everyone has an opinion. Everyone has an opinion.
Well, listen, you keep that daily sales going and you keep those memes coming because those are fantastic. But for those that are listening, I think you probably take a note of the fact that, utilize these things that bring you a smile and engage with your prospects with them, right? I mean, if you've seen your prospects say something like, I know you're not going to stop calling me until I take this meeting. So, that might be the next meme that comes out, and use that to be able to add some color and some laughter to your sales process, if you would. Well, listen, it's been some great conversation. I've taken away some really phenomenal notes. It would be fantastic to collaborate on some things later on, which we'll talk about offline. You have done a really amazing job, Daniel, in terms of using content to drive thought leadership and to develop your personal brand. I want to talk on one last topic, and that is the concept of personal branding and how you as a salesperson and a sales leader has leveraged content development for your personal brand. Tell me obviously you've landed speaking spots that I frankly haven't even been invited to. So share the knowledge of what this has done from a personal branding perspective.
It's totally transformed my life. I said before, 3 years ago, you wouldn't have known who I was, through creating content, through blogging, through creating the daily sales. I'm now in a unique opportunity where I can share my story. I can help inspire and educate others to utilize things that have worked for me. You look at the past, a lot of people that would be speaking would talk about business success, how they grew a business, and whilst this might not be a business in the same principle, it's created a lot of opportunities for me, for my sales teams, for businesses I've worked in. So, creating a personal brand, has helped me find my own voice, a voice I didn't have 3 years ago. It's allowed me to really hone in what my beliefs and knowledge and experiences. It's allowed me to grow as a person, as a professional, as a leader. It's really allowed to enhance that process for me. And through I try to keep it genuine. What I like is when people send me messages and say, that blog, we printed it off, we used it in our sales meetings, amazing. Or that meme, we have your memes printed all around the office. They always make us laugh and keep us going through the day. And that's just a bit of content creation I've done. It's enhanced someone's lives. It's maybe helped them sell, helps them, get through the day. So, that makes it rewarding.
And from a branding perspective, do you believe that salespeople should strive? I think I touched on this earlier, my opinion, but I want to get your opinion on this. Do you think salespeople should strive to become thought leaders, or do you think they should become influencers of their network?
I think they should become whatever they're comfortable in becoming. I think, you can't have everyone to be a thought leader. They'd ruin the whole term of it. But I think, look, your prospects, your customers, they're going to be going to your profile. They're going to be looking at your content. They're going to look at what you're engaging with. So you might as well make it worth it, because if they're going to look at that and it's not a good profile and you're not sharing good content or it's not appropriate, are they really going to want to buy from you? At least have on a basic level a solid social sort of presence. You don't have to be the thought leader, but at least demonstrate that you're someone that they can trust and they can buy from. You don't have to be the expert. You don't have to be an influencer, but just be a good salesperson on social as much as you would be out. If you're going to go to a networking event dressed in a nice suit with some business cards, then at least have the same with your digital presence and have a smart looking profile with some good content and some, good calls to action, because it's the same thing now.
I'm going to steal that illustration. If you're going to go to a networking event with a suit and nice shoes and business cards, why would you not go to your own digital networking event with a nice suit, nice shoes, and business cards? Fantastic.
Exactly.
I'm stealing it. Can I steal it?
Take it away, Mario. Take it away.
All right. I love that. I come up with these thoughts. And, the other day I texted out a message to our co-founders, and it was a title of an article. And our CMO sent me a note back saying, "What did you mean by that? What is that?" And I said, "Oh, sorry. I was just brainstorming on new topics to write on." So in any case, though, that's a good one. I like that one. Well, man, look, I am truly honored to have spent some time talking with you. And I think we've covered some great ground, everything from content creation versus curation. What are the opportunities that exist and how you're leveraging them, how we can engage with funny content as well, and with our prospects, whether you're an IT buyer, a sales buyer, a marketing buyer. And then I love your illustration of, if you're going to show up to a networking event with a nice suit and nice pair of shoes and a business card, why would you not have that same nice suit, digitally speaking, nice shoes, digitally speaking, and the business card, digitally speaking, online? That's a fantastic illustration. Daniel, I always close with our podcast with a question. I know you weren't not prepared for this question, but the question is, your favorite movie of all time?
Ooh, good one. I'm going to nerd out a little bit here. Jurassic Park. Saw it as a kid at the cinema, and I could watch it time and time again. So nothing cool there, but just a genuine, deep favorite film.
I assume your favorite part is when the T-Rex is eating the people or something, or what?
Oh, obviously. So I have kids now. They love it. I make them watch it. But yeah, that's my favorite film.
I love it. Jurassic Park. We haven't had Jurassic Park yet on the show, so we'll take
good.
Jurassic Park. Well, listen, Daniel, it's been fantastic having you. I am so excited. Continue on your progress with the daily sales. Vengreso looks forward to continue to work with you. I look forward to working with you, my friend, and congratulations on all your success and a lot of the recent speaking engagements that I've seen you picked up as a result of your thought leadership and just leading by example with your sales team. So, and we probably should circle back on a topic on how to leverage content to help train your salespeople and actually turn those into blogs. That's a really great idea as well.
Definitely.
All right, my friend. Thanks so much for joining Selling with Social.
Oh, thank you for having me. Take care.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining me on that episode of Selling with Social. I hope you found as much value in that episode as I did. Here's what I want you to do next. Please go to www.vengreso.com. That's VENGRESO.com. VENGRESO.com. And make sure that you get access to our content. We've got the latest and greatest in digital sales, sales training, content marketing, and social selling strategies that are going to help you grow your sales pipeline. I look forward to having you on the next show of Selling with Social. Make sure you also go to vengreso.com/podcast to be able to get access to the latest and greatest Selling with Social episodes, along with any of the other episodes that we've got from Social Business Engines with my friend and partner, Bernie Borges, along with Conversations with Phil with my friend and partner, Phil Gerbishak. Thanks again for joining on Selling with Social.